Imagine spending hours agonizing over a cover letter, carefully selecting every single word to showcase your passion and your expertise.
Right, we all been there.
Yeah, and then you realize the hiring manager on the other side never even read it.
Oh, wow.
Like they just had an AI system summarize it for them.
That is, yeah, that's brutal.
It is, but actually it's worse than that because you probably used an AI to help write the letter in the first place,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
You're optimizing it for the exact keywords you thought the company wanted. So we are officially in this era where bots are literally talking to bots to decide the trajectory of your career.
Yeah, and it creates this really fascinating, if, slightly terrifying structural tension.
Totally.
Because what gets completely lost in that automated algorithmic exchange is the actual human being.
Right.
The nuance, the real-world constraints you faced, and the fundamental truth of what you can actually do, all of that, is stripped away when we reduce professional experience to a machine-readable surface.
Which is exactly why we are pulling apart this massive topic today. Our mission for this deep dive is to figure out how you, the listener, can survive this shift without losing your professional identity to an algorithm.
Exactly.
We are working through a deep stack of sources today, and it's anchored by the architectural blueprint for the Professional Truth Workbook. We've got specific framework models, corporate data, and federal guidelines, all pointing toward a massive shift in how we document our careers. We're exploring how to build what's called a living professional record.
And just to set the table here, this requires a complete shift in mindset.
Okay, how so?
Well, for decades, we've operated on what the sources call resume-first thinking.
Right, like curating a document only when we actually need a job.
Exactly. But the guidance now points entirely towards source layer thinking.
Source layer thinking.
Yeah. And to be clear, the objective here is not to teach you how to optimize yourself into a slightly shinier data object so you can, trick an applicant tracking system.
Oh, thank goodness.
Right. The goal is to help you build an undeniable private foundation of truth regarding your work. You want to preserve your decisions and your context now before a crisis like a sudden layoff or a company merger forces you to rebuild your professional history from memory.
Because memory is notoriously fragile, especially when you're stressed out.
Oh, totally.
So let's start with the immediate problem. The sources refer to our current situation as a crisis of the generated professional surface. What exactly is that surface and, why is it breaking down?
So the surface is anything outward facing. Your resume, your LinkedIn profile, your portfolio.
Right, the stuff everyone sees.
Exactly. Historically, that surface was a direct reflection of your effort. But AI fundamentally alters how those professional claims are generated.
Because the AI is literally writing it.
Yes. Language models are phenomenal at taking a few bullet points and spinning them into highly polished corporate prose.
Yeah, they really are.
But in that process, the AI often hallucinates achievements, or it overly flatters the user, or it simply flattens the truth into this generic, frictionless jargon.
Oh man, it makes everyone sound like a dynamic, cross-functional visionary who leverages synergies.
Exactly. It completely strips the fingerprints off the work.
It really does.
And this is a massive systemic shift. If we look at the McKinsey & Company 2025 Global Survey combined with recent Pew research, the data is wild.
What does it say?
It reveals that 1 in 5 U.S. workers are now actively using AI in their daily workflows.
Wow, 1 in 5.
Yeah. The very language of work is being generated by language models. So, from the employer's perspective, the incoming applicant pool is drowning in synthetic text.
Everyone sounds perfectly qualified on paper.
Exactly.
Which means the paper is basically worthless. I mean, if I'm an employer receiving 10,000 perfectly written AI-generated applications, I can't physically read them.
No, you can't.
I have to deploy my own AI just to sift through the noise.
And that is exactly how enterprise corporate systems have adapted. The major recruiting platforms have fully integrated this tech.
Like who?
Well, when we look at vendor documentation from companies like Workday, specifically their skills, cloud, and hired score modules.
Oh, I've heard of those.
Yeah, or Greenhouse's AI scorecard summaries, or LinkedIn's AI-assisted search and ISOM's enterprise software.
Right.
They're all deploying aggressive AI to parse, categorize, and score you. They're desperately trying to extract a genuine signal from a sea of generated noise.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. If the applicant tracking system, the ATS, is just an AI algorithm scoring an AI-written cover letter, aren't we just watching two bots play chess while the actual human worker is locked out of the room entirely?
That's the reality of the current market. It is bot-to-bot chess.
That's so wild to think about.
It is, and because that generated language can no longer be trusted as actual proof of capability, the labor market is transitioning from a signal problem.
Meaning, how do I get noticed?
Right, to an evidence problem. Meaning, how do I prove I can do what I claim?
Ah, okay.
To get back into the room, you have to build a foundational, private evidence layer. You must point to something much firmer than a self-generated description.
So we move from the surface to the foundation, and the blueprint calls this foundational layer the evidence vault.
Yes.
Now, my immediate instinct when I hear vault is a giant, chaotic, digital junk drawer where I just drag and drop every email, every spreadsheet, and every Slack message I've ever sent. Just hoard everything.
Hoarding is where evidence goes to die.
Fair enough.
If you have 10,000 unorganized files, you have nothing. The evidence vault isn't about collecting a massive pile of artifacts. It's about governing your professional truth, so it's actually usable.
Okay, so how do we do that?
To structure this, the framework relies on a tool called the minimum viable record. Instead of saving an entire project folder, you build a simple, low-friction capture habit centered on 5 specific questions.
Okay, lay those out for me. How do I capture a record without hoarding the whole project?
Right, so when you finish a major task or navigate a crisis, you ask 1, what happened? 2, what did I specifically contribute? 3, what physical or digital evidence exists to prove it? 4, what broader professional claim might this support in the future?
Okay.
And 5, and this is crucial, what information should absolutely not be shared?
I like that 5th question. It bridges the gap between saving an artifact and actually thinking about privacy.
Exactly.
And there's a real technical infrastructure being built to support this kind of verified tracking, right? It's not just a fancy Word document.
Far from it. The underlying architecture that makes this verifiable truth possible is being aggressively standardized.
Really? By who?
The foundational structures being developed by organizations like the World Wide Web Consortium, the W3C, are critical here.
Okay.
They developed the Verifiable Credentials Data Model version 2.0. And alongside that, the One EdTech Consortium is pushing open badges and the Comprehensive Learner Record.
To put that in plain English, the W3C are the same people who standardize HTML for the web, right?
Yes, exactly.
So they are essentially building a digital notary system, a way for a credential or a record to travel securely with you, the worker, and be instantly verified by a third party without having to call your old boss or log into some centralized corporate server.
That's a great way to look at it. The technology allows you to carry mathematical proof of your skills.
Wow.
However, this brings up a massive operational friction point. You can't just take whatever you want from your current job to build this proof.
Right. I can't just download my company's entire client database and say, hey, look at all these accounts I manage. That sounds like a fast track to getting sued.
It will get you fired,
Yeah.
and you'd likely face legal action.
Yeah, no kidding.
The workbook architecture has a strict attribution mandate. Evidence is not exposure. You have an ethical and legal duty to protect the boundaries of your employer's systems.
Makes sense.
You cannot dump proprietary data, client lists, or patient records into a personal vault, and you certainly cannot feed them into a public AI tool.
Definitely not.
This practice is governed by serious regulatory boundaries, including the NIST privacy framework, the Federal Trade Commission's Guide on Protecting Personal Information, and the USPTO trade secret policy.
And if you're in healthcare, you're dealing with HIPAA for patient health records or FERPA for student data in education.
Exactly. The compliance landscape is a minefield.
So if I'm a worker trying to prove I saved a multi-million-dollar account from churning, but the project data is classified or it falls under a USPTO trade secret policy, I'm totally stuck.
Right.
It feels like telling a knight they need to prove they slew the dragon, but they are legally barred from showing anyone the dragon's scales. How do I prove I did the work if I literally cannot show the work?
You don't need to show the scales.
Oh, really?
This is where the framework introduces the concept of metadata only or redacted privacy tiers. You don't take the proprietary substance of the work, you take the metadata surrounding it.
Okay, so like what?
You capture a verified note that the account crisis happened, the date range, your specific operational role in resolving it, the general scale of the budget, and perhaps the contact information of a colleague who witnessed your intervention.
Ah,
You are proving the existence of the work without exposing the proprietary details.
okay, I see. I'm building like a shadow outline of my achievements.
Yes.
But let me push back on that a bit. A redacted document or a list of raw metadata feels totally lifeless. If a hiring manager looks at a note that says, Project X, metadata only, retained client Q3, that tells them absolutely nothing about how I solved the problem or what I'm actually like to work with.
And that exposes the limitation of raw evidence. A metric, even a verified one, is entirely lifeless without the next crucial layer of the framework, context and judgment.
Okay, context and judgment.
The architecture explores this through what is called the claim map and the evidence-to-claim gap.
The evidence-to-claim gap, meaning the distance between what I boast about on my resume and what the actual saved record can definitively support.
Yes, and bridging that gap requires context. Let's say your resume bullet says, managed a team of 12 developers.
Okay.
Without context, that claim is empty. Did you manage those 12 people in a highly stable, well-funded office environment?
Right.
Or were those 12 people distributed across 3 global time zones during a hostile corporate merger while your department's budget was entirely frozen?
That's a huge difference. Doing something under ideal conditions versus doing it in a burning building are two completely different skill sets.
And if you don't document those constraints, you lose the value of the achievement. Context, which includes the scope of the project, your specific constraints, the stakes involved, and your actual level of authority, is what makes your evidence interpretable.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And frankly, the absence of this context is incredibly dangerous in an AI-driven hiring market.
How so? Because the AI doesn't know to ask for the background story.
Exactly. It leads to algorithmic misreading. The Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, the EEOC, actually released federal guidance in April 2024 concerning employment discrimination and AI for workers.
Wait, really? Federal guidance on this?
Yes. If your professional record lacks the context of the constraints you operated under, an AI screening tool might improperly flatten your experience.
Wow.
It might downgrade your capabilities, compared to a candidate whose context was simply more visible or privileged, purely because it lacks the nuance to understand the difficulty of your specific environment.
So context gives the raw evidence its shape and protects it from being misjudged by the bots.
Exactly.
But what about judgment? One of the most fascinating concepts in the source material is this focus on restraint, the active choice not to do something.
Yes, restraint is huge.
It makes me think of like an experienced mechanic. Sometimes the most valuable service a mechanic provides isn't tearing apart the engine and billing you for $1,000 in parts.
Right.
It's looking at a tiny fluid leak and saying, you know what, let's not touch this. It's fine for another 20,000 miles.
The value is in the restraint.
Right. But how on earth do you put, I chose to delay a massive software launch to prevent a user data disaster on a resume? It usually just sounds defensive or like you failed to hit your deadline.
Corporate systems are notoriously bad at this. Because they are designed to record outcomes and deliverables, they rarely record the reasoning or the crisis averted.
Yeah, they only care about what shipped.
That is why the framework emphasizes building a judgment log. This is a private, ongoing record where you preserve the trade-offs you made, the systemic risks you identified, and the ethical constraints you faced.
So if you delay that software launch, your judgment log captures the underlying reasoning like, I identified a critical vulnerability in the payment gateway. The options were to launch and risk a breach or delay by a week and fix it. I chose the delay, escalated the risk to the VP, and secured the patch.
You are capturing your operational maturity. Before you ever have to spin it into a safe claim for an interview, you have the raw truth of your risk management documented.
I love that. It validates the hard decisions.
It really does.
But this raises a really important question about visibility. Everything we've discussed so far, software launches, managing teams, retaining accounts, implies that you have formal metrics to track.
Right?
What happens if your work doesn't produce any formal artifacts at all? What if the reality of your day-to-day isn't hitting sales quotas, but just keeping things from falling apart?
The invisible glue of the organization. Oh. The architecture identifies this as crucial stabilizing work.
Stabilizing work.
Yeah. Translating technical realities for non-technical stakeholders, bridging communication between siloed departments, or simply repairing broken trust with a vendor after a mistake.
Yeah, that stuff is exhausting.
And it almost never gets a clean before and after metric. But without it, the organization halts. And importantly, this invisible work extends far beyond traditional corporate employment.
Caregiving. The sources heavily highlight unpaid work, specifically caregiving, as a massive blind spot for conventional resumes and applicant tracking systems.
It is perhaps the most profound blind spot in our entire economic measurement system. To ground this, we look at the 2025 AARP and National Alliance for Caregiving report,
Okay.
alongside labor data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics on unpaid elder care. These reports put hard numbers to something millions of people experience: coordinating multiple specialists for a sick family member, managing complex medical logistics, medical advocacy, crisis response, navigating insurance bureaucracies.
Yeah, that's a full-time job.
It requires intense, high-level operational judgment.
But the conventional resume format fundamentally misreads that labor. It just sees a 3-year gap in employment.
Exactly.
So if I'm returning to the workforce after stepping away for elder care, how do I capture that? Do I try to translate manage my grandmother's hospice care into corporate jargon?
Oh, please don't.
Like, do I write spearheaded cross-functional stakeholder logistics for a high-risk client?
No, you absolutely should not do that. Accuracy creates credibility. Over-translating destroys it.
Right.
You don't want to pretend a profound family medical crisis was a corporate agile sprint. You named the real responsibilities in plain language.
Like what?
Managed an escalating medical budget, navigated complex healthcare bureaucracies,
Yeah.
executed crisis response protocols. The operational skills are undeniable.
That sounds so much more grounded.
But to back up this invisible work, whether it's unpaid caregiving or quietly stabilizing a toxic corporate team, you need to introduce the final piece of this architecture: the human witness.
Witnesses. I have to admit, when I first read that in the outline, it sounded a little bit like creepy corporate surveillance. Just
Right.
tracking people who watch you work.
It isn't surveillance, it's human context. Think of it structurally. When metrics fail to capture the reality of your work, human networks are the only remaining proof.
Okay, that makes sense.
This is grounded in foundational sociological theory. Mark Granovetter's famous paper, The Strength of Weak Ties, and a much more recent causal test of that theory by Raj Kumar and colleagues, they demonstrate how informal networks function.
Right.
These human connections provide the critical context that algorithms and raw metrics consistently erase.
So a witness isn't someone spying on you, it's just someone who was in the room.
Exactly.
A peer, a vendor, a client, or even a doctor you coordinated with, who can say, yes, I saw them navigate that crisis. I saw their judgment in real time.
Precisely. You track who saw what. You aren't just saving a contact's phone number. You are mapping what specific fragment of your professional capability they can legitimately vouch for.
Wow. So you have this robust vault. You have minimum viable records. You've captured your context. You have a judgment log full of hard decisions. And you have a map of witnesses who can back it all up.
That's the vault.
But eventually, you have to translate this private truth into a format the labor market understands. And let's be real, in 2026, you are inevitably going to use an AI assistant to help you write that resume or prep for that interview.
Unavoidable.
So how do you engage with the AI without letting it hallucinate and destroy the integrity of your hard-earned vault?
You have to govern the tool rather than letting the tool govern you. The architecture handles this through the AI provenance and integrity log.
That sounds incredibly academic. What does an AI provenance log actually look like in practice?
It means actively tracking how AI was used to turn your raw evidence into outward-facing language. This isn't just a best practice. It is explicitly grounded in federal and corporate risk frameworks.
Like the ones we mentioned earlier.
Similar, we draw on the NIST Artificial Intelligence Risk Management Framework, the AI RMF, specifically its generative AI profile,
Okay.
as well as enterprise data protection guidelines published by OpenAI, Anthropic, and Microsoft.
Okay, so if I look at those NIST frameworks, what is the core guidance for an individual worker?
The core distinction is between assistive use and substitutive use. The right way to use AI is assistive.
Assistive, got it.
You feed it your verified context notes and ask it to organize them. You ask it to translate your highly specialized military logistics experience into standard civilian supply chain terminology. You use it to check if your resume bullet is missing the constraints you logged.
The AI acts as an editor, not an author.
Exactly. The dangerous substitutive use is letting the AI invent evidence. You never let it generate a performance metric you can't prove.
Right.
The provenance log is simply a habit of tracking the prompts you used, ensuring a human always reviews the final output, and explicitly noting when you rejected the AI suggestions because they drifted away from the truth of your vault.
So bringing this all together, what does this mean for the listener when they actually sit down, open their laptop, and apply for a new role?
Right?
They built this massive, highly governed vault. Do they just zip the whole file and email it to the recruiter?
No, you never hand over the vault. The vault is your private, governed source of truth. The final step of this entire process is called rendering.
Rendering.
Yes, you render the specific, context-appropriate truth for that exact moment.
So it's a dynamic. If I need a resume bullet, I query my vault, pull from my context notes, and render an accurate sentence. If
Exactly.
I'm sitting in a behavioral interview and they ask about a time I failed, I pull from my judgment log to tell a nuanced story about a trade-off.
Yes.
If I am building a packet to argue for a promotion, I pull my witness mapping to prove my cross-functional impact to leadership.
You only render what is needed when it is needed to the audience that requires it.
It is a profound shift in control. We've moved from relying on these easily manipulated, highly synthetic generated surfaces where everyone sounds like the exact same chatbot to building a deeply private, self-governed evidence layer.
Completely.
It's a repository packed with context, operational judgment, and human witnesses.
And you achieve this while adhering to strict privacy requirements and AI risk frameworks. You secure the truth legally and ethically.
And to you, listening right now, the most important takeaway from this deep dive is that this framework is not about optimizing you into a perfect, frictionless employability score for a corporate algorithm.
Not at all.
It is fundamentally about preserving your agency, your dignity, and your professional memory against systems that are designed to flatten you into searchable keywords. It's about you owning the truth of your labor.
And if we step back and look the absolute biggest picture of all the year, consider the day you eventually retire or the day you choose to leave a lifelong career.
Yeah.
What if the ultimate value of building this living professional record isn't actually about securing your next job at all?
Wait, really? What else would it be for?
What if its true purpose is simply to serve as a private, undeniable testament to yourself? Proof that your work mattered, that the difficult decisions you made carried real weight, and that you held things together, even if the systems you served never fully possessed the capacity to understand it.
Wow. A private testament to your own capability. Keep your truth alive. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.